Good day and welcome to Taboo Talks, where we dive headfirst into some issues and taboos that makes people steer clear of. In this series, we're dedicated to discussing, dissecting, and breaking down taboos in different countries in the world. I'm your host, Socrates, and in today's Taboo Talks, we're going to delve and explore a topic that affects half of the world's population, yet remains shrouded in silence and stigma, and that is menstruation. Before we begin with our discussion in our Taboo Talks today, I'm thrilled to introduce to you our beautiful ladies here in our studio. I'm with Miss Shanaiah, Andrea, and Richell.
Good day, Mr. Socrates, and to our listeners. I am Shanaiah, and I hope you're doing well today, and I hope you can learn something from this episode.
So, a pleasant good day, Mr. Socrates and our dear listeners. I just want to introduce myself. Hello, I am Andrea. I hope each of you is doing so well right now. Welcome to Taboo Talks.
Hello people, I'm Richell Mabbayad, your one and only Kikay speaker for today.
Once again, ladies, good day. Before we delve with our discussion in this series, I'm happy that you all are doing well. But before we really delve into our discussion today, I'd like to ask you a very simple question today. How are you people? How are you, dear ladies?
I am doing great. Thank you for asking, Mr. Socrates. Honestly, I am excited for today's session since we will talk about the interesting topic of a taboo in India, which is menstruation. I know that this topic is significant not just for women, but also for other genders to be aware. So, yeah. Thank you.
Well, same with Miss Andrea. Thanks for asking. I'm doing really well. Excited, actually. I've been looking forward to this episode all week, and I can't wait to dive into today's topic with you. Thank you.
Hey Soc, I'm feeling great even though the weather isn't good today and everything feels a mess. I can still manage my time and in God's grace, I'm going to be okay. We're all going to be okay.
Yeah, it's nice to know that you all are doing well and excited for today's interesting taboo talks about menstruation. So in line with your excitement and your enthusiasm in discussing these topic, we're going to entitle this taboo talk as Redefining the Cycle, Breaking the Indian's Menstruation Taboo. So to start with our discussion today, let's start it with this fundamental question. And this question is, why is menstruation so crucial or important to women's well-being? So what do you think is the importance, or why is menstruation so crucial or important to women's well-being? So you, as being a ladies, women, how is it important? Why is it important to you and to your overall well-being?
Okay, so that is a good question, honestly. So, menstruation or bleeding every month is normal, natural, and healthy. Why? So, it is one of the indicators that women are hitting puberty. As well, every month, the woman's body prepares for a potential pregnancy. And according to research, menstruation helps the body to shape suitable for carrying a fetus to nurture the child while growing. So honestly, based on my experience, during my menstruation, I eat a lot of healthy foods and have self-care and proper hygiene to be safe. And because of eating a lot of healthy foods, our body easily digests nutrients to have a healthier body and have a good lifestyle. Thank you.
Yeah, I do agree with that. First off, menstruation isn't just about a monthly cycle. It's actually a key indicator that a woman's reproductive system is working as it should. Each month, a woman's body gears up for the possibility of pregnancy, and if that doesn't happen, the uterine lining sheds, resulting in menstruation. It's a natural and essential part of the reproductive process, but there's more to it than just reproduction. Menstruation is closely tied to a woman's hormonal balance. Hormones like estrogen and progesterone play crucial roles in more than just periods. They affect everything from bone health to mood to metabolism. So when your cycle is regular, it's often a sign that things are running smoothly across the board. Actually, menstruation is also like a report card for your health. If your periods become irregular, or if you experience unusual symptoms, it might be a signal that something's up. Whether it's a hormonal imbalance, a thyroid issue, or another health concern, it's your body's way of telling you to check in and maybe get things looked at. Menstruation helps the body expel unnecessary tissue and fluids, keeping the reproductive system clean and healthy.
Alright, so I do agree with that information provided by Sean. So I just want to add this little information on what our gorgeous ladies here are mentioning about the topic. So menstruation is a natural and essential process of women's lives. It plays an important role in our physical, mental, and reproductive health. And education really needs to emphasize that menstrual health is really necessary, just like how important men getting circumcised, babies getting proper care and vaccines, people getting their rights in healthcare, and all of these should not be overlooked, including menstruation. So, talking about menstruation is a sign of a healthy and functioning reproductive system. That's why this is going to be really interesting to talk about, since I, myself, a woman speaking, encountering the struggles during the menstruation process. The pain, the mood swings, the worries, and unstable mental health that we are going through should not be ignored, because it is really concerning that some countries are considering menstruation as impurity. And we are going to talk about this to be an eye-opener, not just because this certain country is alarming the women across the globe, but also to teach our listeners out there the importance of being educated to this sensitive and specific topic. As a woman that has irregular periods, it is truly disturbing about not getting my period on the expected date. Not only because I'm not ready for those specific days, but also what's truly concerning me is that the possibility of having PCOS. PCOS, also known as polycystic ovary syndrome. So PCOS can cause irregular periods, weight gain, and other negative body changes to women. I just want to remind you, PCOS is a chronic condition and this cannot be cured. But this is another discussion. I'm just showing you the real importance of menstruation for us, women, who are concerned that we might have this, or for those people that are actually meeting this condition, are really hoping that menstruation will be back to its normal cycle. That menstruation struggle is not a joke. It is not a laughing matter. It's important to remember that everyone experiences periods differently. And for some people, it can be a very difficult and painful experience.
I love how you all said that menstruation plays a crucial part in a woman's life in terms of both physical and psychological well-being of a woman. But it is not just limited to both physical and psychological well-being of a woman, but it covers the whole and totality of a woman's well-being. It is also interesting that you said that all of you mentioned that menstruation or menstruating is not just a monthly thing, but a key indicator that women's reproductive system is working as it should. It's really important to remember that everyone experiences periods differently. And for some people, it can be very difficult and painful experience. So, menstruation, again, is a natural biological process that signifies reproductive health and hormonal balance. It's a key indicator of a woman's overall health, and understanding it is essential for both physical and emotional well being.
So, yeah. So, those statements are an eye opener for us. Okay, so I just want to add information that menstrual blood is not the same as normal blood. Okay, the menstrual blood is made of blood and the membrane or tissue from the uterus that our body no longer needs.
Yeah, it's really true that menstrual blood, it is not the same as normal blood. The menstrual blood is made of blood and the membrane of or tissue from the uterus that our body no longer needs. So yeah, it's really important for us to understand that it is not a menstruation. It's not just a normal blood that flows out of a woman, but it is a blood that is made of not just blood, but also a membrane or tissue from the uterus that our body no longer, that the woman's body no longer needs. Because according to a research conducted by Brantelid, Nevier, and Alhegen in 2014 entitled Menstruation During a Lifespan, a qualitative study of women's experiences, they said, and I quote, menstruation is a natural phenomenon for women during their reproductive years. It is perceived as an intimate and private matter, which makes women want to conceal the occurrence of menstrual bleeding. Over time, menstruation becomes a natural part of a woman's lives and gender identity. So, the reason why we are talking about these menstruation and later on the menstruation taboo is because menstruation is really a part of most or half of the world's population, and it shouldn't be a taboo. It shouldn't be a thing that makes people shy, but it is a thing that must be considered as a normal biological process that happens to a woman. So why are we talking about the importance and crucial role of menstruation? And how does menstruation affect women in a drastically manner? Because there are some parts in the world that considers menstruation or menstruating as a taboo. On a specific lens, we'll be talking about the menstruation taboo in India, a land that is considered to be as a land that is rich in culture, the land of the enlightened ones, a land that is rich in traditions and beliefs, but yet menstruation is an important topic in their country that is veiled in secrecy and discomfort. Before we really delve to our discussion on the causes of Indians' menstruation taboo, let's talk about what taboo is or what taboo is all about.
So interesting. So taboo is more focused on social, cultural, and religious practices. And based on my understanding and research, these are restrictions or forbidden behaviors, practices, and activities that are associated with the beliefs of people that are considered inappropriate actions in one society.
Yes, a taboo is a strong social or cultural prohibition against certain actions, behaviors, or topics. These are the things that society considers off limits, often due to deep-rooted beliefs, traditions, or religious practices. It's like an invisible boundary that governs what is acceptable and what is not.
Alright, so according to what they've said, a taboo is a social or cultural belief that forbids a particular practice or behavior. A powerful social force that dictates what is considered acceptable and unacceptable within a community.
So after knowing what taboo is all about, we know that taboo is a strong social or cultural prohibition against a certain actions, behaviors, or topics. And commonly, the taboo are the things that the society considers as an off of limits or off limits. It is oftenly true or deeply rooted on the beliefs, tradition, and also the religious practices of the specific group of people or country. Not just that, it is also an invisible boundary that governs what is acceptable and what isn't, or what is not. These taboo manifest in numerous ways, affecting not just women but the society as a whole. So after knowing those things, so in menstruation in India, we're going to talk about the causes of menstruation taboo in India. So let's break it down. So let's start with how religion becomes a great factor and plays a crucial role in menstruation taboo in India.
So, that is an interesting question, Mr. Socrates. I've searched, and one of the reasons why menstruation has become taboo is due to religious beliefs that led to misinterpretations. Okay? Menstruation is considered dirty and impure. Since then, in Vedic times, it has been linked to Indra's slaying or killing of Vritra. So, Indra is the one prominent deity in the ancient Vedic, and Vritra is it represents evil and it Indra's enemy, and it has been declared in the Veda. So the Veda is an ancient Hindu text that the guilt of killing a Brahmana murder exists. So it appears that every month a menstrual flow of women took upon themselves a part of Indra's guilt. Okay, so and as well, women can't participate in any religious practices during menstruation because they believe that menstruation is dirty. Okay, and including here is that they are not allowed to cleanse rivers or lakes since they believe that menstrual blood is unholy and they will contaminate the water, okay, which is considered holy. Women are restricted from touching holy books and even offering prayers. So they are not allowed to enter puja or ceremonial worship that leads to social exclusion. And because of religious myths, that's why it became taboo, and many Indian women can't discuss the period blood because of shame and embarrassment.
Yeah, we thank you for that, Miss Andrea. So if we're going to take a look in the lens of religion as a factor of why menstruation became a taboo in India, it is because in their Veda, in Hinduism, in Veda is considered to be an oldest text of Hinduism. As we all know, one of the major religions in India is Hinduism. It is dominant. It is a dominant religion in India, and therefore, if we're going to look into the lens of this religion, we're going to see that they see menstruation as a dirty and impure thing because of Indra's sin, or because of Indra's plot of killing Vritra. Indra again is a prominent deity in ancient Vedic. However, Vritra, who is a snake or a dragon or demon, or it is technically Vritra is the enemy of Indra. And in the Vedic times, it has been linked, or menstruation has been linked to Indra's slaying of Vritra. And in Veda, it was declared that the reason why women is having this kind of menstruation, this process of menstruating, it is because of the guilt of Indra. Again, it was stated in their Veda that it appears that every month a menstrual flow of women had taken upon themselves as a part of Indra's guilt.
Yeah, also, menstruation in India is shrouded in a complex web of cultural and religious beliefs. Women may be prohibited from participating in religious ceremonies, cooking for the family, or even entering certain parts of their homes during their menstrual period. So, these practices stem from historical beliefs that menstruation is a state of ritual impurity. In rural areas, these taboos are particularly pronounced. Women often have to follow strict isolation practices, sometimes spending their menstrual period in separate spaces away from the family. This isolation can also extend to schools where menstruation related absences are common due to stigma and lack of facilities. A 2020 study published in the Journal of Health, Population and Nutrition highlights that menstruation is still considered a dirty subject in many Indian households, and discussions about it are often avoided. The study points out that this taboo not only affects women's physical health but also their mental well-being and social interactions.
Right. So, in addition to the information provided by Andeng and Sean, in Hindu scriptures, including the Manusmriti, emphasize the concept of impurity. So, this belief is from the idea that menstrual blood is considered unclean and that it can contaminate sacred places, objects, and people. So, this leads to restrictions on menstruating women entering temples, touching holy books, or participating in religious ceremonies. So, Manusmriti is an old text of Hinduism, basically considered as Vedas. There is a quote here that says, "For the wisdom, the energy, the strength, the sight, and the vitality of a man who approaches a woman covered with menstrual excretions utterly perish." So this phrase refers to menstrual blood, which is seen as a polluting substance in the Manusmriti. The text uses the term excretions to emphasize the idea of impurity. Also, it suggests that a man who comes into contact with menstrual blood will lose all of these said good qualities. So what we are seeing now is a clear indication of how menstruation is viewed as a threat to male power and dominance. It reinforces the idea that women are unclean and our bodies pose a danger to men, which makes this taboo in India. So their religious beliefs affect how they view the rights of women.
Thank you for all of those insights about how religion became a taboo in India. It was mentioned that menstruation in India is shrouded in a complex web of cultural and religious belief. That women are may be prohibited or actually prohibited from participating in religious ceremonies and even from cooking for the family and also entering into certain parts of their homes during their menstrual periods, and that causes them to be isolated and some people resort to being away to their family for the means of isolation. So women in their country, because of religious beliefs or because of the religion factor is women often to have to follow strict isolation practices that sometimes spending their menstrual period in separate spaces from the family. And it was also mentioned by our dear guest, Miss Richell, that in a scripture that was an excerpt from their scripture, it was said that menstrual process is a polluting substance that pollutes people, especially men, and will cause men to lose their good deeds or to lose their good attributes. So you see how religion really affects or became a factor in addressing or in making this menstruation a taboo in India. So after knowing how religion became or take part in making this menstruation a taboo, let's now talk about the economic factor, because we're not just dealing about the religious beliefs, the religious factor, but also we believe that economic factors do really play a pivotal role in making this menstruation a taboo.
Yeah, in terms of economic, in India and many parts of India, menstruation is not only a social and cultural taboo but also a significant economic issue. This taboo often limits women's access to menstrual hygiene products and facilities, impacting their overall well-being and economic opportunities. One major economic impact is the cost of menstrual hygiene products. A 2018 report from the non-profit organization WaterAid highlighted that many women in rural India struggle to afford sanitary pads, often resorting to unhygienic alternatives like old cloth or rugs. So, this affordability issues is compounded by the stigma surrounding menstruation, which can prevent women from seeking out or discussing their needs. The lack of access to proper sanitation facilitates impacts economic productivity. A study published in the Journal of Health Population Nutrition in 2020 found that inadequate menstrual hygiene management is linked to school absenteeism among adolescent girls. So the report noted that missing schools due to menstruation-related issues can have long-term effects on educational attainment and economic opportunities. So, the economic burden of menstrual hygiene products is often exacerbated by the so-called pink tax, where products marketed towards women, including sanitary pads, are priced higher than their male counterparts. So this price disparity was highlighted in a 2019 report by The Guardian, which discussed how the additional cost of menstrual products can place a significant economic strain on low-income households. So these are efforts underway to address. There are efforts rather underway to address these issues. So social enterprises like She or Sustainable Health Enterprises and Menstrual Hygiene Day campaigns are working to make affordable, sustainable menstrual products more accessible.
Okay, yes, I agree, Miss Shan, and your statement is insightful. So they can't even buy any sanitary napkins because of poverty and lack of inadequate facilities. And I just want to add in the social aspects, because of the taboo formed, women are hesitant and shy to talk about menstruation. So here, it's just that women are not free to talk about it because it leads to embarrassment and isolation. And they feel sorry and bad for them, since it is discrimination and inequality in Indian women, which can have a negative impact on their self-esteem or their well-being as women, because the community think that they are dirty.
Wow, those insights are so insightful. I really do agree with that notion from Miss Shanaiah. I do remember this one TED talk of an Indian woman that I've watched, that because of the economic status that they have in their specific village or country, they resort into using clothes, and that is because also of the isolation that happens to them, because they are shy to make it known to the public that they are having these kind of menstrual menstruation every month. So they use clothes, and they're going to just after using those clothes, they're going to wash it and then reuse it after it is being dried, until it became an old rugged clothes, until it became to torn apart. So it is really important that we discuss this economics factor, because again, the reason why these happen to them, we're going to steam this back with the religious belief. Because of the religious belief, it causes them to be isolated, and in that isolation, they tend to hide it all the time to people. And then and in that TED Talks, I do remember that Indian woman, when she was young, that she tend to hide her menstruation and then not buy sanitary product from their nearby stores, and then uses a cloth until it became an old rugged clothes in every month, so that she would be able to aid her menstruation. So it is again steamed back with a religious belief of their country. So, and also I really appreciate how their government and other people and enterprises make an effort on making this menstruation pads or menstruation sanitary pads affordable to people, though there's this still a stigma in their country. But I really appreciate how they are helping the country to address these taboo. So I love that. So now we've talked about two out of many reasons or factors of why menstruation became a taboo in India. We're going to delve now into the third reason, the third factor that we're going to discuss today, and that is this one of the most important factors in making this menstruation a taboo, and that is education. As we all know, education really plays a great and crucial part in everyone's lives. Education enables us to know things, and education doesn't just happen in a proper schooling or proper school environment, but education could also be to be educated with menstruation could also happen inside the house. So according to a recent study by the United Nations or Child Protection Agency, the UN's Child Protection Agency or UNICEF, they stated that 71% of adolescent girls in India remain unaware of menstruation until they get their first period. So this lack of education for menstruation. Okay, there's this lack of menstruation education in India or in most part of India. And this huge amount of number or percentage of young women who doesn't have or unaware of menstruation is really alarming. It is really alarming, and there are results, or there are things that there are results that is coming upon or coming from these 71% of young women who's unaware of menstruation. And because in another report by the NGO in Dashara, India, which was published also in 2019, they pointed out that 23 million girls drop out of school annually due to lack of proper menstrual hygiene management facilities, which include the availability of sanitary pads and information about menstruation. So we can see how education can really take part or really impacts these kind of these taboo in India. So it is really alarming that 71% of young women are unaware of their menstruation when they get their first period. And some of them, because they are unaware, think that having a menstruation is also having a chronic illness disease, that they think that they will die. But the truth is, a menstruation is a normal biological process that happens to every single woman who reaches the age of adolescence or puberty until they got menopause. So, and also this is alarming that almost 23 million girls are dropping out of school, not just because of the lack of proper menstrual hygiene, but also because of the lack of the availability, not just of sanitary pads, but also of the information about menstruation. I think Miss Rachel has something to say about the education factor of making menstruation a taboo in India.
Alright, so I just want to add something to information provided. So, for teenage girls in India, menstruation can be a time of both physical and emotional discomfort, leading to stigma and discrimination they face from society. So, many girls in India lack adequate information about menstruation before their first period. So, since their country is not open to this topic, meaning to say that they do not explain it further to teens about menstrual health. So, this lack of awareness can eventually lead to fear, anxiety, and confusion, making the experience even more uncomfortable. I remember during my grade school, that was my first time having my period. I rushed to get home because I have this abdominal pain, which was I didn't know that is menstrual cramps. So I ran through the street and not knowing I had my period that time. Not until my lola shouted, "Meron ka na? Tumakbo ka na ng CR." So that was really unforgettable. I miss my lola. Anyway, basically, my grandmother taught me that time how to take care myself while having period. So I'm really blessed to have guidance from my lola. And imagine that most girls in India are not receiving this kind of menstrual health information from someone they know. That's why menstrual health education should be a top priority in their country.
Yeah, thank you for that wonderful insight and experience that you've shared. It is really important. You see, when Miss Rachel had her first menstruation, her Lola became her guided her in how to make herself prepare and how to take care of her body, especially when she's having menstruation. So you see that education is not just about educating and making an informed information about a specific thing or about menstruation, but it is also important. Education could also be a guidance on how to really prepare themselves, how to prepare women on facing this kind of menstruation. It is really important. You see how most of the young people or young women in India were deprived of this education. So if we're going to see on the brighter side, what would happen to them if they have this right information, proper education about menstruation? I believe that it could really, these number of 71% of adolescents that are unaware could be deflated until it becomes zero, because education is really important. Education could really take part in making a transformative thing or massive change or shift in the arena of the taboo world. Because in the spectrum of taboo, we could see that menstruation in most part of India is really a big deal. But if we're going to really take this seriously with proper education, addressing it with right tools, we could lessen the 71% of adolescent girls in India that is unaware of the menstruation until they got their first period.
Additional, also, according to the research, there have been efforts to address these challenges. Initiatives like the Menstrual Hygiene Management Program by the Indian government aim to improve facilities in schools and provide education on menstrual health. Organizations like Plan India are also working to break the silence around menstruation, promoting awareness and support for girls in schools. Yet, despite these efforts, the impact of menstruation taboos on education remains a significant barrier for many young girls in India. It's clear that until these taboos are broken and proper support is provided, the full potential of millions of girls will remain unrealized. Rather.
Thank you for that wonderful insight. So I love how the Indian government address or take this seriously, though despite of those initiatives of the government, can we really say that education is enough, or to educate people or young women of menstruation is enough? I think this is not enough, or this is not enough for a very small thing. Why? In line with education, we have to have a proper implementation, the proper application of those learnings or of those information that was given or that was introduced to people. Because we've seen that the government of India has given or do their initiatives in addressing these kind of taboo, but yet it remains to be an hindrance for some people in India to really take this thing as seriously. But I think that we really have to see a proper implementation of this kind of education with proper implementation. So since we're talking about the proper implementation and the things that really must contribute to destroy or break these taboo, let's now talk about the things on how to break these menstruation taboo in India. As we all know, changing a deeply ingrained societal norm is no easy feat, but it's essential for the progress and empowerment of all, especially of women that is having a menstrual process every single month, especially if menstruation is seen to be a taboo. So I'd like to ask you again a question. What do you think are the possible ways that can really help in addressing breaking these menstruation taboo in India? Miss Andeng?
Okay, so I think one of the possible ways is being knowledgeable or educated about the biological, natural process of the menstruation cycle. Why? Because of the taboo, many Indian women and men are unaware or lack understanding and knowledge about puberty and reproductive health, which has severe impacts on women's human rights. Okay, so it can lead to misconceptions and discrimination against women, and because they are not well informed, it can be difficult for them, right? So improving the factual information about menstruation can combat the beliefs or myths that are associated with menstruation. And as well, Indian women lack information on how to use proper sanitary hygiene, so being educated is significant to avoid or reduce the health risk to their health, such as urinary tract infections and reproductive tract infections. And in this case, if they were aware of those things, it could be combat in addressing the problem. And always remember that raising and spreading awareness can be a huge help in fighting stigma, myths, and societal taboos, and dispelling misconceptions. And yes.
So thank you for that, Andeng, and Miss Andrea. So yeah, it is really important that we really give an education, just like we were talking about earlier. A proper education must be imparted. So let's talk about how are we. We've talked about the things on on how to deal with this taboo. It was stated by Miss Andrea, and I love that we've been talking about an education. I think Miss Shanaiah has something to say before we really delve into the conclusion, and also I believe Miss Richell has also something to say about this on breaking the taboo.
Alright, so aside from fighting against this unjust belief of Hinduism, I just want to raise the menstrual health education within India. So being educated means that women will know what is right and what should they get to receive. Let your voices be heard. Right? So promote comprehensive menstrual hygiene education in schools and at home to lessen these kinds of religious beliefs that step on women's rights. So the government should be looking to make sanitary products much affordable and accessible to women. They should improve sanitation facilities in work, schools, especially in rural places. Let's encourage conversation with regard to menstruation because we should not be ashamed of the things that are naturally happening. Our menstruation is not a sign of impurity, but this is a symbol of empowerment and agency to embrace our bodies and our unique experiences.
Yeah, I do agree with Miss Andrea and Miss Richell. Education is key. Comprehensive menstrual education should be integrated into school curriculums for both boys and girls. When young people learn about menstruation as a natural, healthy process, it helps normalize the conversation and dispel myths. Programs like this not only educate but also empower young girls to manage their periods with confidence and dignity. Engaging men and boys is equally important. Often, menstruation is seen as a woman's issue, but involving men in the conversation can help dismantle the stigma. When fathers, brothers, and male classmates understand and support the women in their lives, it can create a more inclusive and supportive environment.
Yeah, thank you for those wonderful insights and important notions on how to break the taboo. We've been talking about on ways on how to break this taboo, and you've mentioned major things on how to break this taboo. Number one is a proper education with proper implementation of those things mentioned and discussed in education. It is really important to have and include a comprehensive education about menstruation, not just specifically and solely for women, but also for men, because by doing so, we foster understanding and inclusive environment to all without giving away or without opening a door for discrimination for people especially for women who's having menstruation. And also you've all mentioned the proper conversation or right conversation of making this menstruation not a taboo, not thinking that having menstruation is a curse, not thinking that menstruation is a curse that to women because of a deity that have sinned for killing Vritra. But we have to see that menstruation is more than just that belief from a specific sect. But menstruation is a normal biological process that happens to a woman. to every single woman. By doing all of those things, we are dismantling this belief of or these taboo in the lives of people, and especially for women in India. So I really love how our talk delves and unveils topics about menstruation. We've tapped into different subtopics about menstruation, from the first period of women to menopausal stage of a woman, and you've also shared your personal experience when you've got your first menstruation, and also of the PCOS and how important it is to women. So why are we, again, in conclusion, we have to really take this seriously, because according to UNESCO in 2019 in their research, it was, and I quote, the stigma in 2018, and I quote, the stigma and shame generated by stereotypes around menstruation has severe impact on all aspects of women's and girls' human rights, including their human rights to equality, health, housing, water, sanitation, education, freedom of religion or belief, safe and healthy working conditions, and to take part in cultural life and public life without discrimination, end quote. These quote really assert that though there is still an ongoing stigma on some or most part of India, what we can infer is that menstruation is very important in women's health and in overall well-being of a woman. And we have to see that menstruation is a normal biological process in a woman's reproductive system. This is not a curse. Menstruation is not a curse, but a normal biological process in a woman's life. So, what we can say from all of this? So, can you share your takeaways from this session or series? Anyone who would like to share their conclusion or their takeaways from our series today?
Okay. It is very clear that this is an issue with profound implications, particularly for the education and economic opportunities of millions of girls and women. Menstruation is a natural biological process, yet the stigma and silence surrounding it continue to create unnecessary barriers. Breaking this taboo isn't just about providing better access to hygiene products or facilities. It's about changing mindsets. It requires education, open conversations, and a commitment to dismantling the harmful beliefs that keep menstruation shrouded in secrecy and shame. We've seen that when girls are educated, supported, and provided with the resources they need, they thrive. They stay in school, pursue their dreams, and contribute to their communities and the economy. The journey to ending the menstruation taboo may be long, but it's one we must take together. By challenging the stigma, spreading awareness, and supporting those affected, we can help create a future where menstruation is seen not as a hindrance, but as a healthy and normal part of life.
Thank you for that wonderful insight, Miss Shanaiah. It's really important that we know that we were well informed of the menstruation, and I love how you've mentioned the things that must be prioritized, especially in order to really address these kind of taboo. It is really important to have this thing the changing of minds, the change of mindsets. It is really important for us not just to really see this kind of menstruation in a lens of a specific sect or a belief, because again, menstruation is a normal biological thing, that a process that happens to every single woman who enters puberty or adolescent period until they got into the age of menopausal. And then I also love and believe about the open conversation that can the results that can be brought about by an open conversation in this menstruation taboo. By having an open conversation, we foster a landscape for understanding and for seeing these kind of these taboo or this menstruation not occurs, but rather a normal biological process that really happens to a woman. And it is important for women, and it just like what we were saying earlier, it is a key indicator for women for ovulating, for making for producing children, okay, for having or conceiving a child. And it is also important and a key indicator that the reproductive system of a woman is really working in a properly manner. I think Miss Andrea has something to say before we end this conversation about menstruation taboo.
Ayan. So, okay, so all the women out there should hear me out. So this statement is according to Period Power. Menstruation is not a curse. It is a gift that allows us to connect with our bodies and the earth in a profound way. So remember, ladies, we are not dirty. Period is a natural process. So thank you, listeners. I hope you enjoyed it and gained new knowledge about the topic.
Yeah, thank you for that. It is really important that we know that dear women, you are not impure because you have this menstruation, but it is normal to have it. Again, my dear women, it is really important, dear women, that menstruation is not a taboo, or it is not a curse to all of you. It is not an end of the world. It is not an illness, but rather it is a normal process that happens to every single woman. So, as a man, I really learned a lot of lessons about menstruation, though I do have a prior knowledge about what is menstruation is, but to take a closer look on its importance and how others sees it, especially India, it makes me an advocate for breaking taboo of menstruation, because this kind of taboo has to stop, because menstruation is a normal biological process that happens to every single woman. Thank you for joining us. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and share this podcast with others. Let's continue to break the silence and taboos and embrace the cycle with knowledge and compassion. Until next time, I'm your host, Socrates, together with our beautiful guest today, Miss Andrea, Shanaiah, and Richell. And you've been listening to Taboo Talks.